Welcome to my channel, HFY Humanity, and let's begin. My name is Karel, third observer of the Valoran fleet, scholar of developing civilizations, professional watcher of species that eventually wipe themselves out. I expected Earth to be the same. Most of us did. Small planet, excessive oxygen, violent wildlife, strange weather systems. A species that still argued on tiny, glowing rectangles about things like food toppings and politics. Obviously primitive. And yet, somehow they survived their own stupidity. Naturally, the High Council wanted to know why. That is how I ended up floating inside a dull, gray observation vessel above Earth, sipping nutrient gel that tasted like disappointment, and watching the most confusing training program in the galaxy. Because of her, the human. Her name was Laya Hart, and if I had known what she would become, I might have asked for a transfer, but I did not. So here we are. It started 20 Earth years ago. A rescue operation. An alien scouting probe had crashed in the Arctic region. Nothing serious, just a broken drone and a navigation core. We planned to retrieve it quietly. Humans arrived first. That alone was irritating. The rescue team consisted of 6 humans wearing bulky snow armor and shouting into radios like they were narrating their own disaster film. Commander Holt was their leader. Tall, scarred face, voice like gravel. He spotted the wreckage. Then he spotted something else. A child, not human. A small Valoran infant pod had been inside the probe. A contingency life capsule. The child inside was technically one of ours, but genetically engineered to adapt to extreme environments. Commander Holt stared at the pod. One soldier said, "Sir, that thing blinking at us?" Another replied, "Pretty sure that's an alien baby." Pause. Commander Holt sighed. Then he said something that would change history. "Well, we can't leave a baby in the snow." Yes, that was the moment humanity adopted a Valoran child. We did attempt retrieval later. It did not go well. Apparently, Earth governments become extremely stubborn when someone tries to politely request the return of their daughter. So the child stayed. Her name became Laya Hart, raised inside a military training compound somewhere in the American mountains, which is where I began observing her years later. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. She was small, thin, quiet. Then training started, and that assumption died violently. Humans train their soldiers in ways that make no sense. For example, they shout constantly. A human instructor named Major Briggs stood in front of a line of recruits, including Lila. He paced slowly. Then he shouted, "Life is unfair." The recruits yelled back, "Yes, sir. The enemy does not care about your feelings." "Yes, sir. The enemy will try to kill you." "Yes, sir." Then Briggs stopped in front of Lila. He squinted. "You? Hart, what happens if the enemy is bigger than you?" Lila shrugged. "Then I aim better." Silence. Then several recruits laughed. Major Briggs stared at her for 5 seconds. Then he grinned. "Kid's gonna be dangerous." Correct. She was. Valoran physiology gave her advantages. Faster reflexes, denser muscle fibers, superior night vision. Humans noticed quickly, so naturally, they made training harder. Obstacle courses, combat drills, survival exercises. At age 12, she completed a mountain endurance test designed for adult soldiers. At 14, she broke the Academy's reaction record. At 16, she knocked a grown Marine unconscious during sparring. Accidentally. She apologized. The Marine said while still lying on the floor, "Kid, never apologize for winning." Humans are strange mentors. But the truly interesting part was her personality. She talked constantly, sarcastically. During a live fire exercise, someone asked her why she never panicked. She replied, while calmly reloading a rifle, "Because panic doesn't improve my aim." Another recruit said, "You say that like it's obvious." She shrugged. "It is." Another time a recruit asked her about aliens, which was awkward considering she technically was one. "Think aliens exist?" he asked. Lila smiled. "Oh, definitely. You ever seen one?" "Maybe." That answer caused weeks of arguments among the recruits. Meanwhile, she kept training. Faster, stronger, smarter. Humans began calling her something interesting. The Colonel's secret weapon, which was funny because the colonel actually hated that nickname. Colonel Dean Hart. Yes, the same man who adopted her. He treated her exactly like every other recruit, which meant brutally. During one training session, he threw her into a combat simulation with 4 opponents. One recruit complained, "Sir, that's unfair." The colonel replied calmly, "War is unfair." Then he added, "Besides, she's already planning how to beat them." He was correct. 20 seconds later, the simulation ended. All 4 opponents eliminated. Lila stood in the center of the room, brushing dust off her sleeve. She said something that made the entire observation crew aboard my ship stare at the screen. She muttered quietly, "That felt slow today." Yes, slow. This from the fastest recruit in the facility. Naturally, we reported everything to the Valoran Council. Their response was predictable. Concern. Human military influence may weaponize the subject. Yes, that was the entire point. But things became worse. Because Earth joined the Galactic community 5 years later. Official first contact. Valoran diplomats arrived. Peaceful meeting. Trade discussions. Polite smiles. Then the humans brought their security detail. Guess who was part of it? Yes, Lila Hart, standing calmly beside the Earth delegation. 22 years old. Uniform sharp. Eyes scanning every corner of the room. I was present at that meeting. Observer status. She noticed me immediately, which was impressive. Valoran cloaking fields are not easy to detect. She looked directly at my position, tilted her head slightly, then smiled. That moment sent a cold ripple down my spine, because the smile said something very clear. "I see you." And she did. Later, something happened that made the entire Valoran Council extremely nervous. A border conflict erupted between Valoran patrol ships and a hostile alien faction known as the Reth. Aggressive species. Expansionists. Violent. They attacked a joint Valoran outpost. Humans volunteered assistance. The Council hesitated until Earth sent a message. Short, direct, and terrifying. "We'll send one soldier first." That soldier was Lila Hart, and unfortunately for the Reth, she had been raised by Earth's military. The Reth believed they were predators. That belief lasted exactly 43 minutes after Lila Hart arrived. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain the situation. The Reth were tall creatures. Thick armor plates across their bodies. 4 arms. Claws designed for tearing through hull plating. Their soldiers carried heavy plasma cannons that could turn stone into vapor. Valoran troops struggled against them. Our outpost on Cora Station was losing ground quickly. Then the humans sent their volunteer. When Lila arrived, the Reth commander laughed. Yes, actually laughed. I remember the moment clearly. I was observing the command chamber when her transport landed. Small ship, 1 passenger. The Valoran commander asked the human ambassador nervously, "You sent 1 soldier?" The ambassador nodded calmly. Yes. The Valoran commander stared at the battlefield display. Then he said slowly, "There are nearly 200 Reth troops on the station." The ambassador sipped his coffee. Yes. Silence. Finally, the Valoran commander whispered, "That human will die." The ambassador shrugged. "Probably not. Humans have disturbing confidence." Lila entered the command room, wearing standard Earth combat armor. Light gray plating, tactical visor, compact rifle across her back. She looked around the room like someone entering a slightly messy kitchen. Then she said, "So, where's the problem?" The Valoran commander blinked. Then he pointed at the battlefield map. "Everywhere." She leaned over the display. "Okay, big lizard guys. 4 arms. Heavy guns. Pause. Slow turning radius." The Valoran commander frowned. "You have fought Reth before?" She smiled. "No." Then she tapped the map. "But they move like tanks." Another Valoran officer spoke. "There are too many of them." Lila tilted her head. "Too many for what?" "For 1 soldier." She shrugged. "Good thing I'm not planning a fair fight." Then she walked toward the exit. The Valoran commander shouted, "Wait, what is your strategy?" She turned back, grinned, "Annoy them." And she left. At that moment, I began recording everything, because something about her confidence made me curious. The first Reth squad encountered her in Corridor 17. 8 soldiers, heavy armor, weapons ready. Lila walked around the corner casually. One Reth shouted in their language, "Human detected." They raised their cannons. Then everything became confusing because the human vanished. Not literally, just very quickly. She slid across the floor, fired 3 shots, kicked one Reth behind the knee joint, flipped over a railing, and rolled behind a supply crate. 4 Reth dropped instantly. The remaining soldiers roared and fired wildly. Plasma blasts burned through the hallway. She calmly spoke into her comm. "Yeah, they're definitely slow." Then she threw a small grenade. Smoke flooded the corridor. The Reth panicked. Large species do not enjoy losing visibility. From inside the smoke came several sounds. 3 gunshots, a metallic crash, one very annoyed alien roar. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, 8 Reth soldiers were unconscious or worse. Lila stood in the middle, stretching her shoulder. She muttered, "Okay, that works." Inside the command room, the Valoran officers stared at the screen in disbelief. The human ambassador simply nodded. "She's warming up. Warming up." That phrase haunted me, because the next 30 minutes looked less like combat and more like hunting. Lila moved through the station like she had built the place herself. Ambush, distraction, traps. At one point, she hacked the lighting system and plunged an entire sector into darkness. Humans apparently see quite well in low light. The Reth did not. One squad wandered blindly through a cargo bay. Lila's voice echoed through the darkness. "You guys ever try turning your heads faster?" A Reth soldier fired randomly. She replied calmly, "That was a warning shot, right?" 5 seconds later, that squad stopped moving. Another group attempted to corner her inside the reactor corridor. She sealed the blast doors behind them, then announced over the station speakers, "Congratulations. You're now in a very small room with someone who had a lot of military training." Valoran officers listening to the comm channel looked horrified. Then came sounds of combat. Short, brutal, efficient. When the doors reopened, none of the Reth were standing. 38 minutes after she entered the station, the Reth commander finally decided to face her personally. Huge creature, nearly 3 meters tall, armor thicker than anything we had seen. He stepped into the central hangar and roared, "Human, face me." Lila walked into the open. Hands relaxed. Helmet off. She looked up at him and sighed. "You know, yelling your location usually isn't a good tactic." The Reth charged, massive claws swinging. The floor shook with each step. Every Valoran officer expected the human to be crushed. Instead, she stepped sideways. One small movement. The Reth slammed into a cargo container. Before he could turn, she climbed the container, jumped onto his back, and jammed an electric charge device into a gap in his armor. Then she jumped off. The shock detonated. The giant alien collapsed like a fallen building. Lila brushed dust from her sleeve. Then she spoke into her comm. "Okay, I think that's the boss." Silence filled the command room. Finally, the Valoran commander whispered, "Is the station secure?" Lila looked around the hangar. Several unconscious Reth soldiers groaned nearby. She shrugged. "Yeah, probably." Then she added something that still embarrasses my entire species. "You guys might want better locks, though." Later, when she returned to the command room, everyone stared at her. The Valoran commander asked the only question that made sense. "How did you defeat them alone?" She thought for a moment. Then she said casually, "They expected a soldier." Pause. "I was raised by the entire Earth military." Then she smiled. "And humans don't play fair." That was the moment the Valoran Council updated its official assessment of humanity. New classification. Extremely dangerous allies. And as for Lila Hart, well, let me put it this way. Across 3-star systems, there is now a rumor. If humans send only one soldier, run. Because if that soldier is Lila Hart, you never stood a chance.